Hello, this is Sandra Lafke Carlson on November 14th, 2020, and I am conducting an oral history interview this morning with some of the O'Callahan family on their memories of growing up in Tualatin in the 1950s and 1960s. Ross Baker is helping us do this by Zoom since we're in various locations in Oregon right now. So I'd like to introduce each one of you. So please give a wave or a sign when I say your name, and we'll go from there. So Lonnie O'Callahan and Colleen O'Callahan and Molly O'Callahan.
Whoop.
And Peggy O'Callahan. Thank you. So I'm just going to ask the question first, how the O'Callahan family came to Tualatin, or how it was chosen to come to Tualatin and build a home.
Well, my father received a big bonus. We were living in Oak Grove, and he took what do you call those things?
Compass.
He took a compass and drew a circle around the city where we were living then, and looked at the options and decided on Tualatin. So we came out with this bonus, and he bought 20 acres just outside of the city limits of Tualatin.
Mm-hmm. And then you, I think you mentioned weekend picnics when the house and a barn were being built. And were your parents building the house, or did they hire somebody to do that? Do you remember?
Yes, they hired Fritz Reinhardt to build the house, and the barn was largely a barn raising with friends.
Oh. And this was in what year? What year?
53.
I can tell you it was before me.
54. 54.
Okay.
54. Lonnie, would you say 54?
Yeah, I'm having to do the math here.
I had my 4th birthday there, and so that would have been in 55. So it was done in, so maybe it was 50. No, that doesn't seem right though.
I was going into the 7th grade, and in the 7th grade, you have to be 12, which meant I was 11, which would be 42 plus 53.
Okay, 53.
Says the mathematician of the family.
So you had a lot of crops. You had a lot of things growing on that land at the time. You mentioned an orchard, a filbert orchard, and I guess was there a garden? And your family, or maybe it was mostly your mom with you or neighbors, put up a lot of fruit from your property.
Yeah, there was a lot of agriculture in the area. There were like blackberries and blueberries and filberts, and people had cattle. It was just a real agricultural area. When he got out there, the 20 acres, a portion of it was just open land, and then the garden and the filberts, and so.
Yeah, and we fenced in about 5 acres for our horse, Patsy, and that fence was, I remember putting 13 staples into a very wobbly, almost branch as one of the poles. So it was not a fence that Sunset Magazine would have been interested in.
I can
Huh.
smell the creosote now. Do you remember when?
And Patsy, you mentioned riding Patsy, and maybe it was either you, Molly, or you, Peggy, when you were very young, riding Patsy to neighbors' homes or into town.
Into town. Pull Patsy up beside the barn and get up in the barn and put her bridle on and then pull her over. You could get on her. And I would ride clear down to George's store, even the brick store when he was still in the brick store, and wait for him to get me off Patsy, because I couldn't get on or off anywhere unless I had someplace to stand up on or somebody lifted me up. Yeah.
She was a wonderful horse. We could do circus tricks on her and slide off of her bottom. And then we got another horse named Pogo, and he was extremely mischievous. He could open the gate with his teeth and escape. So we chased heifers and horses around the neighborhood, trying to catch them.
There was one time, I mean, Patsy was a dear, sweet horse. But there was that one time that I wore one of my little sweaters and had gone down to the barn to play with Patsy or whatever, and my sweater got caught on the fence. And Patsy came over because she could see that I was struggling because I was caught on the fence. And she started licking the top of my head. And, you know, there were oats and things, but, you know, as a very, very young child, I don't even remember how old I was. I was quite sure she was eating me alive. And the barn, you know, when that barn was built, it was quite a ways from the house. So, you know, it took a while for my screams to be heard by, you know, neighboring kids, siblings to come rescue me.
And I guess you spent summers, a lot of the time in summers, helping to harvest, picking fruit or nuts at your place, or this was at other farms too in the area?
We were basic field workers during the summer. So we went from crop to crop to crop to crop. Whatever was ripening at the time, my mother got us involved in the field work. So we picked a lot of crops, and sometimes we went great distances to pick beans, like, you know, so we had to save half of our money for college and half of our money for school clothes.
Hmm. Oh, great. And how do you harvest filberts? Do you just shake the tree and
Oh, Sandra, it's a long saga. First, you have to sucker the trees. And this is why Mom and Dad had so many kids, so that they could work us to death. And so, you're looking at the survivors. So then you had to cut out caterpillar webs in the upper branches, and they would fall down on you, and caterpillars would go down your shirt, and you had to burn them alive, the caterpillars. And then when you raked the filberts in piles, you picked them, but the husks abraded your
fingers or your hands?
Yeah, right where your fingernails end. Yeah.
Oh.
So we loved complaining. And then they went to Hawaii and planted another nut orchard.
Yes, and then Claire put an ad in the paper for hard workers because we weren't having anything to do.
So, but she had to pay them. But she,
and we earned
was she involved with the school, providing food for school lunches? Was that what she did? And so did that food go to the cannery, or did the people in the community make a soup out of it, or just a daily lunch for the school, grade school?
They put up during the summer before school was in session. They would have these canning
Yeah.
conventions at the grade school, and they would put up all kinds of different things. I don't think it then went to the cannery. I think they did it themselves.
They just used the kitchen, right? They
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
used the school
Oh.
kitchen and it was like a group that would do canning together, a couple of gals or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Seems- Yeah.
And your mom was very involved, well, both your parents in the community, weren't they? Your mom in the PTA?
Mhm.
Um,
Yes, she was president one year and had to go to a statewide meeting. And she bought a pair of pajamas.
You can edit that out.
Because she didn't use them at home. So
Oh. So those are her first nightwear.
She and my father were very involved in the circus that they held at Tualatin grade school. And my father
Uh-huh.
sawed my mother in half, and then he threw knives at her. And it was a very, very powerful event.
a very powerful marital dynamic.
So if you really want to know how those tricks work, we could tell you afterwards, but I think we're still guarding the secret, right?
Tricks? They were tricks?
What kind of tricks? Yeah. Were these trapeze gymnastic tricks?
No,
being
he
sawn
sawed
in-
her in half, and then he
Sawed
would,
in half.
Oh.
and then he threw knives,
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
and the knives would come around her head and barely miss her body.
Oh, and wasn't there a famous can involving your mother and two other ladies? Was it Dorothea Pennington and Jane Brown?
Oh,
That
those are-
sounds very likely. Mhm.
yeah,
They did get into mischief, and we're not sure to this day exactly what kind
Yeah.
of mischief.
My mother and Dot Pennington would do flips every year. And I don't know when she stopped doing flips. I think they were in their 70s, right? They went
I
out
don't
and did
know.
flips. Mhm, they challenged each other that way.
Huh. Oh. And your dad was he had poker games? He mentioned that with other fellows or other people in the community and on a regular basis.
Dr. Baker, Harvey Baker, and
Mhm.
Earl Fulis, was he a part of that? And
Oh.
I don't know.
John
if-
Brown.
Did Doc Pennington ever come over for poker? I don't think he was a poker guy, or was he?
Merle?
Yeah.
I would put him there, but I don't remember.
And I think Chuck from Dad's work would come out every once in a while for poker.
Oh. What kind of work did your dad do?
He was an engineer, and he built a lot of the tunnels around Portland and bridges around Portland, and really did a lot of great work. The Markham Bridge, I think, was one of his last bigger projects.
Huh. And your mom, she was a busy stay-at-home mom
He was
early
what
on.
you would call an entrepreneur.
She
Mhm.
did.
Early on, she was pretty busy at home doing towels, a lot of towels and a lot of stuff like that.
She read when we were in junior high school, she checked out a book at the library that said how I turned 1,000 into 1,000,000 in my spare time. And in that era, women didn't work very much. And my father didn't want her to work outside the home. So she read this book, but she just really only read the first chapter. And then she started investing in real estate. And so then her troop of workers would go down to these devastated buildings and rip out a bunch of garbage and tear out a lot of things, and then help her paint and prepare these for the rental market. So she actually did do that.
That was her career.
Yeah.
She asked her girlfriends a couple of times to help too. I remember Betty or Jane was called in on the act and said, hey, I need to get this done. Can you meet me here? And we've just got a little bit of sheetrock. Can you help me load?
Oh, and Frances Amundsen helped her a lot too.
Yes.
Amundsen, yeah. Mhm.
Oh,
And that's the only time I ever think Mom did anything questionable on her tax returns, because she put down permanents as home repair.
Bonnie, you're telling a lot of stories out of school.
And I neglected to ask you who all was in your family, because you had two brothers. Patrick was, where were they in the lineup? Was Patrick between Molly and Peggy?
Peggy, yeah.
That's right.
Okay. And he lived in Hawaii for a while, didn't he?
He had 6 children
he
and he
did.
lived in Hawaii, and then he died, how long ago was it?
He was 50.
He was
So
In
Wow.
2004.
2000.
Oh.
Good job, Lonnie.
She's
Yeah.
a mathematician once again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive. And then Michael, who's still around, and he's in Portland, isn't he?
Yes.
And he was in my class in school, and I see his postings on Facebook quite often, and he's been an advocate for the homeless in Portland. I've heard, and it seems so.
Well,
And he
Sandra,
ran
do you have a story you can share about Michael that we might not even know about then, since you went to school with him?
I know, well, I just know that he was unique. He was unusual. And I think when we had a reunion, maybe the 30th reunion, and he was there, and we all thought of him as a hippie. He was a hippie who had gone to Alaska and lived in the wilderness, and then I think he claims that he has visited, is it every place in the world that
the deepest or something.
the
The
deepest, the lowest,
The
The lowest points.
the lowest points. Yeah. So he's been around the world, and interesting.
He ran for mayor this last election.
Right. Yes.
And
Yeah.
if you cross the Ross Island Bridge, you can see his PhD, personal housing dwelling. It's on a tiny piece of land that he found that no one owned. And so he put up a little structure, and that's where he lives.
Oh, wow. Very
You
interesting.
termed it very right. He is unique.
But I don't want to omit the fact that Dad was on the school board.
Oh, mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And
And
you,
Mom bought, when she got into real estate, she bought a lot of properties in Tualatin.
Yeah.
oh, she did. Okay, I didn't know
Yes.
that.
What was it? The Gables, right? The Gables was the name one, right?
Yes.
School, the Tualatin Gables, and Mr. Lundy's house. And the little, we called it the little pink house by the railroad tracks by the city park.
Oh, the Edder's house. That was the Edder's house. Yep.
Okay. And where else? That's all I can think of right off the top of my head.
Uncle Austin's.
Yep.
Oh, Uncle Austin's,
Right.
which was across the street from the grade school and towards Tualatin. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And then
Well,
the farm
and then-
was out of Tualatin, I guess. It was in Stafford, the farm, right?
And then she, did she kind of develop, what did you call it? Galway Hills?
Yeah, mom and dad did.
So built houses along the street, along Killarney Lane, near where you lived. And so that was probably one of the first housing developments or neighborhoods outside of the town.
I believe it was, yeah.
I think it's the only one that has an Irish name, at least as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the names, many of the names in Tualatin have a Native American ring to it. And then you driving down the road and would see Galway Hill and Killarney Lane. It was like, what?
And you, so you all went to Tualatin grade school? No, Lonnie, you didn't?
Mm-mm.
Because you were the oldest and, okay,
Went to Fowler Junior High.
okay. Yeah, and that was, you mentioned in your talking points that was like almost a 50-minute bus ride
Yeah.
between Tigard and Tualatin. And why was that? Why was it so long? Because they're just 3 miles apart.
You didn't start out driving toward Tigard. The bus took you out to Norwood Road, and you went way out picking up people. It was a huge loop before you started actually going in the right direction.
Oh,
I don't think they had a lot of buses. It might have just been the one bus.
yeah. So what did you do on the bus to kill that time? You just visited with friends on the bus?
I can remember this. After school, just staring out the window, not talking.
Yeah.
But I can also remember when Terry Livermore reached around and pulled my hair. Yeah, so
Drama.
there was often drama. Yes.
You remember John Brown, who was the
Oh
principal,
yes.
and Mrs. King. I remember
Yeah.
her reading those
Yes.
Laura Ingalls Wilder books. And do you remember Mrs. Salmons? Did any of you have Mrs. Salmons?
I don't think so.
Figure? Okay. And you walked to the grade school?
A lot.
Wow.
I think we had, when I was growing up, I think we had the option. We could take the bus or we could walk.
Yeah, we could take the bus, but we liked to walk,
Oh,
I recall.
But
okay. And you were-
Peggy had that traumatic experience of waiting for the bus and having Tommy Amazon be hit by a car.
Oh gosh. Oh, you were there, Peggy.
Yeah.
And that was, and you mentioned that was at a dangerous spot in the road where it just wasn't protected, or there was, hopefully that's been changed, but was that on Boone's Ferry at the end of
It was
Killarney?
on Boone's Ferry, and it was, you came down back off of the hill, and you could get speed going. And I don't know what the speed limit was, but I think it was fairly fast. And there was a bunch of kids, and at that time they didn't put, slow down kid zone or anything like that, or any kind of a bus stop kind of situation. So there were cars that were going fast through there.
Mhm.
And how much room was there on the shoulder, Peggy, where you waited?
There really wasn't much room at all. I mean, we could step back into the woods. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, very unfortunate.
Wow. Yeah. And so was anything done after that to put up a sign, telling people there were children waiting, or?
Sandra, I can't recall. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that's unfortunate. You were involved in 4-H. too, I understand.
Kate
Some of-
Nyberg, she ripped out my apron about 30 times.
What she did, she ripped it out.
The stitching, it was not, it was. And so I still don't sew now.
What was her first name, Sandra?
Kate.
What was?
Okay.
Hey. Yeah. Oh.
So my mother was also very involved with the Tualatin Crawfish Festival. She would cook those crawfish in our kitchen, and the aroma, I mean, it was so intense with all of these spices that she put in there. It was stronger than the dog food factory, really. And so one year she was the organizer of the parade. And so my mother said to me, whatever you do, because I had a little motorcycle gang at the time, and she said, whatever you do, don't get behind the church float, because they're playing Jesus loves me, this I know, from their float. And so we waited and waited and then pulled out. We were the last exhibit. And we just happened to be behind the church float. So my mother was unhappy about that. But we used to catch crawfish and those big, huge cages.
And then, of course, her title that 1 year was 1 or 2 years, Mrs. Mudsack, because we cleaned all the crawfish.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing we had to do in between the filberts and in between the strawberries and in between. It's like, kids, this will be so much fun. We love this.
Yeah.
And there we were in a circle in the patio with these huge tubs of crawfish, cleaning them, getting ready to cook.
And
Do you know how to clean one, Sandra?
Pardon?
Do you
Have I-
know how to clean a crawfish?
No, I think, don't you just pull off the tails? Because isn't that where most of the meat is?
And the guts come out with it. And you can chase your cousin with the guts.
And ideally, it's just the middle fin on the tail, and you twist it and pull. Just
Oh.
that middle fin.
Okay. And you also made floats?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. The floats we made were kind of like, I think Pat would get home from work because oftentimes he worked on Saturdays, and then Claire would say, "Oh, it's time, we have to put this float together." And there would be a little grumbling because he had just gotten off of work and she had these ideas, and they put it together. They always put these floats together, and they came out. Well, I was the youngest one, so I thought they came out beautiful. I don't really.
They were beautiful. They were.
Yeah.
Were they flowers, leaves, just anything?
Flowers. Tissue
Yeah.
paper flowers.
The last
Flowers, leaves, toadstools. We've had toadstools. We had sometimes bales of hay. They were like a 4x8 sheet of plywood painted and then put on, made up in whatever way we wanted to make them up in, and pulled by the lawnmower, by the riding lawnmower.
of which, depending on who was driving that lawnmower, could be kind of a dangerous thing. There was that year where they tried to pop wheelies, and I was on the float on the toadstool.
Was that Bob Amundsen?
I think that was. I had to keep getting on that toadstool because he would kick me off. But yeah, I don't know how long the Tualatin Crawfish Festival parade was around prior to me, but it seems like it was a long-running event in Tualatin.
Yeah. I remember, I think at least in the 50s, I think they started it up. I remember walking in the parade with my little inflated horse, and the horse kept losing air. I had to keep pushing on it to,
Well, that's much better than one year I was the pooper scooper. And so
Oh.
I had to go behind real horses. I would have loved your horse.
Let's see. My brother has told me about an incident, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, but the way he tells it, it's funny, about the water issue, the water supply getting to your neighborhood, which is kind of uphill and a couple of miles from downtown, from probably where the water came from. And yeah, but the mayor wasn't very, I can't remember the mayor at that time, but wasn't very
Hugh McDonald.
empathetic. McDonald, okay. And not very sympathetic to the fact that you and some people weren't getting water very much. But
We
Yes, and
had enough to outlaw Molly on this.
Well, you know, I feel like I should call Steve and Janet McDonald and discuss it with them first, because I don't know if I ever came clean that I was in on the on the
well, you were in. Okay, okay.
yes. We'd had a couple, it seems to me like there was a summer or two that water was low, the water level was low. Just generally, and there were times when people weren't supposed to mow or water their lawns and things, and so we'd get a trickle up at our place, or none. Sometimes it would be, but mostly always a trickle. And the way I remember or understand now is Mom came home from a city council meeting, and she was very upset at the mayor because she had been complaining about the water and that they needed to do something to change the water so we could get water up there. And the mayor was not at all concerned. He said, well, I have water, you know, we have water. And sort of flipped her off and she came home very upset. And we were around the kitchen table, a couple of friends and brother and things. And so I don't remember if Mother suggested it. I kind of think so, but well, I'd like to turn his water off. So we all got quite excited and went down and checked it out during the day about where his water meter was and where all of it was and what we'd need and things. And then we went down at night and turned his water off. And then I don't know what happened after that, but he didn't have water the next morning.
Did your water supply improve, or did that take a while?
You know, I guess we got more water. Did we?
Yes, it did. I don't know if that was the critical juncture, but yes, we did get city water.
Oh, good. Well, my brother remembers that caper fondly, and I think he spent a lot of time at your house, and maybe your home was a gathering place for kids. You know,
For outlaws, yeah.
For outlaws.
And do you remember the Columbus Day storm in 1952?
Yes.
You experienced that, and did that do any damage to your barn or your place?
Not that I remember. I loved the Columbus Day storm, and we had so much fun going out and, you know, leaning into the wind like we were flying and things. And then when we had a big windstorm, I don't know, it was about 4 years ago, maybe, or 5 years ago here again, and it was kind of like the Columbus Day storm. It reminded me, a lot of people were talking about the Columbus Day storm, and I've changed a lot, you know, because when the Columbus Day storm was on, it was so exciting and so much fun. And so, but this one, I was thinking, oh God, don't let a tree fall on my house. You know, I don't want to, all these responsible things came at me. It was much different during the Columbus Day storm.
Yeah. Different to experience it as an adult.
Yes.
Child. Do you remember the big pond that would occasionally form in the low place? It was because my grandparents had a farm that was to the north of your place, and it would form there quite a lake.
Yes.
There was a lot of rain, and then one winter I remember when it froze over, and it was frozen for several days at least. And I think one of you, somebody in your family, I think fell through the ice, because I remember seeing a big hole that had frozen over. Was that Michael?
Oh, it was me.
Oh, it was you.
Mhm. And I had to break the ice to get out of there because it wouldn't, I couldn't lift myself up on the ice because it wasn't thick enough.
Oh, gosh.
But we scrambled when that lake froze over. Everybody went in their attic looking around for any kind of thing to sled on, any kind of old skates, any kind of, we got everybody on that detail.
That was fun. It
That
kind of drew a lot of community together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And there was a slight hill to the north of the pond. So you must have gotten up there on a sled, something to slide on. And I remember
was
that.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And
Tualatin just seems in those days, it was so free and so open, and there were so many opportunities for kids just to play. I mean, it was a gathering spot. There were many gathering spots, that kids would just come together and play freely. It was great.
Oh, you mean after work, Peggy?
What after
After our 3 hours of work on Saturday.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
So she was also very involved. Mom was also very involved with Girl Scouts and Bluebirds.
Oh,
So she was the leader. And did you ever join one of her groups, Sandra? Were you?
no, Mrs. Demke was, Barbara Demke's mother was the leader or the counselor of my group in the Bluebirds and Campfire Girls.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Yep.
But, so yeah, I remember Tualatin was, it was kind of like a movable feast for kids, to move from one backyard or one field to another, and just lots of open spaces.
Yeah, we would go over the hill to, it wasn't the Lafkeys, but who was it? It was, who had the milk, Molly, that we would go get the milk from? The Howard and Flax. Yeah, we would go to their house to get milk. Well, I would, in the glass things, and bring it home to Claire.
Yeah, but it wasn't over the hill.
Oh, it wasn't over the hill.
The hill was laughed. I loved your grandparents. I loved your grandfather too. But over the hill was the rock person that we got the petrified poop from, right? Colleen, didn't you get the petrified poop from somebody over the hill on the other side?
That was a very big highlight because I could leave it on teachers' chairs when they weren't looking. And it was really authentic.
Yes, it
What-
was. Yeah.
What kind of poop was it?
It could have been
Animals.
humans,
It could have been human. Yeah.
Look at you.
Or a large dog. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mache lived over there. He had that wonderful.
Oh, Mache, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you call him Miche, because we called him Mish, but probably was Miche.
He was the petrified poop man and Mache were very good friends of mine. I would go and hang out with them for hours and hours and hours. And he had a wonderful greenhouse and he played music to his plants. He was a wonderful soul. Yeah.
Oh.
Later, I served cocktails to him at the Sweetbriar Inn. There you go, Lonnie.
Well, and the Christiansens were really exciting. They lived further south of us, but he had horses and we would, he's the one that took me on the gun club ride. And that was so thrilling because Patsy would up her game if she was with a better horse. And we waded through lakes and all sorts of stuff. He was really kind of wild fun. Gib.
Give. I think, did everybody else get their National Rifle Association? Did you go through that shooting thing? Nobody did?
No.
I guess I did. I don't
Oh,
know.
you did?
You're the motorcycle mama. I can kind of.
Yeah.
Well, Ruth Gavin did a lot of shooting and won a lot of trophies, and she was in my class in high school, in grade school. But I guess your paths didn't cross, Colleen, when you were.
No, we went to the Sherwood shooting range, I think it was, and we had nobody else did that, and we took the test to see whether we were, how we rated, and then we got our card, the National Rifle Association card member. But I've since changed my position on that. But my brother Pat, and I think your brother, they went hunting all the time.
Oh.
And my brother Pat's room, which was on the other side of the house, was completely filled with carcasses of animals and birds that he had shot.
Oh, really? And was that in the Iback Woods or the woods behind your place, to the west of your place?
They went
Mostly.
there. They
Yeah.
went to the wetlands down by the Sweetbriar Inn. They went to the wetlands over by where
Tonquin.
they
Up
went.
in Tonquin.
Oh. I remember when my grandparents were still on the farm there, and I think Grandpa had a big field of maybe wheat down in that low, I think in the low spot where the pond sometimes formed. And one of you got into his wheat field. I think it was either Molly or Peggy, one of the younger ones, got into the wheat field one day and did some crop circles in the wheat field. And he just kind of chuckled about it. I'd be upset, but
I've worried about that because we used to do that to his clover. We did it to his wheat. We did it. I mean, that was like one of our highlights, is to go, you'd crawl around and make little places where you could hang out together. Yeah, he gave us a lot of joy. And I think we were probably a headache to him.
let's see. You had no TV until, what was it, the 60s, the early 60s?
And we rented a TV first. It was when Patrick broke his arm, and we rented a TV for a couple of weeks. It was a pretty exciting event to have a television. And then it was a year or 2 or 3 after that, I don't know, that we actually bought one, they bought one for us. Yeah, so does anybody remember when Patrick broke his arm? Didn't he get bucked off the horse in a bee's nest? Didn't the horse go in a bee's nest and he got bucked off? Wasn't that it? Does that ring a bell for anybody?
I was away at college.
Otherwise, you would have remembered quite well.
Well, it does sound exciting, but I remember coming home from college and there was a TV in the family room, and that used to be the hub of activity. Dad in his big chair, and everybody was watching TV. It was really such a letdown.
A letdown because why?
The engagement was gone. I mean, something was always going on in the family room. You could always gig something up, get something going. But
Yeah, it became like, here, if you're going to watch TV, why don't you husk these nuts? Here, if you're going to watch TV, why don't you peel these envelopes? Here, if you're going to watch TV.
Yeah.
My mother always tried to find ways for us to earn money. And one time she got us a gig addressing envelopes. And we would go downtown Portland to this woman's house, and we would get boxes and boxes and boxes of like 500 envelopes. And we had these boxes all over the house. We had a card table, and we'd spend hours and hours and hours addressing these envelopes.
Oh,
We used to
Penny a
say
piece.
Colleen and Lonnie can do speed writing like nobody.
Yeah.
and you were all agreeable to this.
Well,
Wendy.
Oh, yes, of course.
all right. Oh, Mom,
yes,
may I
Mother.
please have some more? No, it was, you want to go to the movies? 100 envelopes. So,
But you had a lot of, it sounds like you had a lot of family time, playing games in the evening before maybe this was before the TV, but you mentioned canasta and Monopoly and just things you would do together.
We did a lot together, and we had bales of hay that we would stack. They were 75 pounds a piece, these bales of hay. We would stack them on top of each other, primarily with Mike and Patrick's help, and make forts and play war games.
Oh gosh.
That was fun.
Yeah. Oh.
And
Yeah, you wonder.
Christmases were great because Dad would always go out. And to me, I was the youngest, so the trees that he got, I forget how big they were, maybe 10 or 12 feet, because we had, the tall ceilings, maybe bigger than that. But he would always go out and harvest, and, the kids would go out with him, and he'd choose the tree and take it down just someplace out in the woods. It was great.
Uh-huh.
Good memory.
And then our mother would we would make decorated cookies, sugar cookies so lots of people came over to our house to decorate cookies, and then these cookies would hang all over the tree. It was kind of we had popcorn, we had cranberry strings and popcorn strings and all these cookies. But I'll tell you, when you're looking for a sugar high and the tree's been up for 3 weeks, it's not what you think.
So the
yeah.
would slowly disappear.
Well, it kind of took the fun out of stealing cookies. I mean, they were hard as board. And,
They were so beautiful, though.
That's because they were decorated by us, some of them too.
uh,
We could find our own cookies.
One of you mentioned, maybe it was you, Colleen, about floods, and I thought, well, how would they experience the floods? Because you were a mile or two away from the river, from the Tualatin River. But what do you remember about the Tualatin floods?
I remember that our school bus driver was driving us home and couldn't cross the Tualatin River because he thought it was too high and dangerous. So I remember that, and I can't remember what year it was. And I said, okay, I'm going to get off. I'll walk across that bridge. And I can't really remember exactly how that turned out. But my brother Mike, when Tualatin was flooding, would just go down and ride his bike. We didn't have the grown-up attitude about flooding and how devastating it was. So we,
it just became another thing to explore or experience.
Yeah, it was fun. They were fun.
Yeah.
Couple of them.
And we probably do every close by swimming hole, I think, that there was. We swam in Scotts Mills. We swam at the Rocky Place, and sometimes we swam in the Pudding River. That was no fun. But
Weren't you two lifeguards at the Tualatin Valley Golf Course?
Lonnie was a lifeguard, weren't you?
Lonnie.
yeah, but at Peninsula Park and Wilson High School.
I
But did
was
you
at-
work at the Tualatin Country Club?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was a towel girl there, and then I was the snack bar girl making hamburgers and hot dogs and that. And then I worked banquets with a Nyberg. What was that Nyberg's name?
Ori, Chris,
No,
Christine.
No, it was a grown-up lady.
Oh,
I was always kind of amazed thinking back at, Tualatin, when we first got out there, I remember the population was really, really low, like, over 350 or something. but there was this golf course that was a fancy golf course. Like,
Yes.
it's amazing that it was there. I don't even know what year it was built, but it was very lush and very posh.
Uh-huh.
It was built because the Jews weren't allowed to be members of the golf course, golf club. So they built it themselves. So there were Tompkins and there were all kinds of hoi polloi in the Jewish world who had that private country club.
Like a separate world, though geographically close to Tualatin, which was our playground. And then we worked at the Toledon Country Club, and it was like, what? Yeah.
And Lonnie, I thought you was a swim, what do you call it? I thought you worked at one of the parks on the river, like the, was it Romer's Rest or
Avalon.
on?
Our mom would take us to Romer's Rest after we finished picking berries, and we could swim until she picked us up and brought us home at dinner time. And I remember they had the board swimming pools that you could use, diving board, and the river. And in the swimming pools, there were pollywogs and gelatinous masses. Yeah. And every year, my swimsuit would disintegrate from swimming in that river. Yeah, but it was fun. You know, we're so lucky that we were reared like a litter rather than parents are now so responsible for their kids' safety.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you had a very free and open childhood, it sounds like. I mean,
Well, after work.
after envelopes and all
And
those.
what year was it that Tualatin got their swim pool?
I don't remember.
Oh.
I mean, the Amber, is that right?
Yeah.
The Amberns, that was it. Yeah.
Mhm. Did you go there? Did you go
I
swimming
went
there?
there a lot.
I taught swimming there.
Oh, yeah. It was small, wasn't it? It was an indoor pool
Mhm.
near the railroad tracks.
Yeah. I would go to swim meets there all the time when I was, I don't know how old I was, but it was fun.
I think they opened in junior high, when I was in junior high, which would be 63, 64, 65, somewhere around in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Molly, you were in my brother's class?
He was older than I.
Oh, he was older. Okay.
He's like 2 years older than I am. Yeah.
Okay.
I just thought you and your brother were exceptionally good looking, Sandra.
You are, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were very handsome.
Molly, for
Uh-huh.
well, I think you have a very attractive family. So you've held up well. Can you think of anything else that you want to share about your growing up in Tualatin and your mom? I think you mentioned that your mom bought property. Was it near Wilsonville? Was it on Eden Road?
Stafford. Ellickson.
Ellickson Road. Okay.
Right.
And she lived there for a while after.
Yeah,
Tualatin?
both mom and dad lived there for 73 to 8. When did dad die? 86. So 73 to 87 or so she lived there.
Okay. And then she moved to Lake Oswego and she lived there for a while.
No, she moved to Tigard, not King City, but
Summerfield.
Summerfield. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
from there.
Yeah.
after Dad died. I think she lived there for a year after he died. Isn't that about right?
Oh, I think Jane Brown is still there.
Yeah.
Still there. So, and now you've kind of, you've scattered, Molly. You're in Lake Oswego?
I'm in Metzger, Tigard.
Oh, okay. And Lonnie, you are in Salem?
Yes.
Okay, and Colleen, you're Lake Oswego,
Right.
is that right? Yeah, and Peggy, where are you on the coast?
In Newport.
Newport. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, but you do this, you get together every Saturday?
Almost,
and catch up. Yeah.
You know, it's so different with COVID. This would, you know, it's really brought us kind of closer together because it takes so much time and effort to get together in person. And this is just so easy. We can do it wherever we are and
Yeah.
spend an hour just visiting. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Also, my sister Molly thinks that Alan's probably still very handsome. Is he married?
Colin.
Oh,
I think
also-
Sandra already knows that at Mom's wake. I lost. Well, I don't know. Anyway, I told her all about Alan, me having a crush on Alan. Do you remember, Sandra? And
Yeah.
in fourth grade, he gave me that little thing, and yeah, I had quite a crush on that man.
oh, what did he give you? I don't remember that.
A little necklace with a bird cage and 2 pearls in it.
Wow, heavy duty.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I
What
know.
is that guy's number?
I think he got that from my jewelry box.
And I told you that. I wondered. No wonder he wanted to get out of there fast. Well, I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, he is married, and he's
Yeah.
he and his wife live in the on the corner there. It's the last little piece of my grandparents' farm, and that's still in the family. So and he's retired, and he does a lot of gardening and cooking, and he doesn't fish much anymore, but his son is carrying on that hobby, that interest. So yeah.
Well,
Oh.
is there a Lafke Street or is
Oh.
your name?
There's a Lafke Park, a little park that's kind of at a high point in that development that was their farm, and yeah, it's a pretty little park, and then there is the Lafke house that they lived in after their retirement. They moved down to next to the river, and then the city bought it when that was really nice because my grandparents were able to stay in their home by the river until they passed away, and then it became city property, and in the Poles Adult Community Center is next to it. So I think they use the house as an office or a city office. I'm not sure why, but
That's
yeah.
nice.
yeah. So yeah, I have fond memories of Tualatin too, of growing up there, and just the close. It seemed like a close knit community, and very free and open, and so I still like Tualatin, but it's very different now,
But it's nice to see names like Martin Nancy. That's why I asked about Lafke.
Yeah.
It brings all this memory up, and it kind of makes there something relatively permanent about our experience.
That's right. Yeah. And there isn't an O'Callahan
That's
park.
what I wanted to talk to you about. That's why we convened this meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the Iback Park, which is near, but Killarney, I don't know, every time I, drive by Killarney Lane, I think of the O'Callaghan's. So, yeah, well, I guess I've exhausted all the questions I had or topics you gave me. So I really appreciate all of you coming together and giving this time and your memories. And I hope when this COVID thing is over, I hope you can come up to Tualatin, visit the Heritage Center in Tualatin, and just, come, and we can visit again.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for all
Sandra.
do for the
Thank you.
Society.
Thank you. Take care.